We're live. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I hope everyone's had a great Easter and a great Eid as well last week. And welcome to our DEI session on small change and big impact. We're on the final straight now, home straight, final term of your year, and it's going great. I know that. So so really, you're near the finish line now. So keep on going. Well done, and thanks for all your hard work. I'd like to introduce a colleague who some of you will know really well because she possibly was involved in recruiting you onto the course last year. So welcome, Jo. So Jo Venables. So Jo Venables, the reason I said that was previously was our skip program manager for a number of years. Is still within sort of Discovery Trust and Inspiring Leaders. She's now the early career lead for Discovery. So welcome. Good afternoon, Jo. How's it going?
It's going really well, thank you. Can't wait to see some familiar names and faces. Hope everybody's okay and you've got a biscuit and a cup of tea.
Always.
Absolutely.
Keep, as we do on these StreamYards, keep commenting. It's if you're not commenting, it's quite hard for Jo and any other presenter to sort of get a bit of feedback how it's going, and so it's just not a one-way traffic from Jo. Please keep commenting, and I'll share those with Jo at various points, and I'll pop up little comments. Don't let that put you off if I'm going to put a little quote on the screen and stuff. So it's going to be great. So I'm excited to be here, Jo, and thank you. And share your slides and let's go.
Okay, so I hit present and then they'll come up. Is that right?
I'm open.
Excellent.
Fingers crossed.
Lots of things in my expertise have developed since I was in the skip. Technology is not one of them. So let's go. Okay. Gosh, this is strange. Can't see anybody. So do I have to upload the slides then, Dirk? Is that what we need to do?
Probably, yeah. Go on. We'll keep talking as.
Oh my goodness! I tell you what.
There's a delay on the stream anyway, Jo. So
okay, all right.
It'll be a bit of a catch up for people. But...
right. Well, I shall just mute and hide my camera while I sort that bit out. Then bear with.
Thank you. Yeah. So we'll just be 30 seconds. So thanks for everyone's patience. Spring's here. Hope everyone's enjoying the little bits of weather we're getting between the rain. It's always good. It's always nice the summer term in schools. Run up to Christmas is obviously tough with the dark nights and stuff, but you do have the exciting stuff going on in schools. But the spring into summer is definitely where it's at, really. Great fun.
Okay, they're just uploading now. I've got the blue circle. It's not the blue circle of doom, so hopefully they're there. Just give it a quick minute. Yeah, you're good? Right, good. Excellent.
Brilliant. Over to you. Thanks, Jo.
Let's go. Yeah, and please do, as it says, make any comments you like. It's a bit weird not being able to see anybody. I'm currently in the school library, and I'm sorry if there's any background noise because Wraparound Care Club have decided to move out into the corridor, so they're just through the door. So hopefully there won't be too much distortion on what you can hear. But right, let's go for it. So today's session is small change, big impact. Great to see you. Great to have you on board. Hope you're enjoying all the other diversity sessions. This one might be a little bit different to the ones that we had before because the aim of this isn't to provide you with lots of resources. It's not a done deal, but what it will do is get you well on that path to thinking about the changes that you can make that have the biggest impact with your children. We're going to have a look at some thinking points, perhaps have a little bit of reflect on ourselves. And it's very much about making our environments really enabling for all our children, no matter sort of what their background, what cultural capital they have or haven't got, and so forth. Okay, so we'll hopefully get started. Okay, so the aims of today's session, we're going to talk about our lens, what that means, and how we can sort of reflect on our own lens and understand how that might have input some bias into our thinking. We're going to think about how we can identify the lens of others, so children, pupils, our colleagues. We're going to have a look at the windows and mirrors concept as well. So this is something quite new to me, and I've applied it to a few different topics, and I think it works really well. So hopefully you'll enjoy that too. We're going to have a think about what an environment is, how we can make that enabling. That will mean something quite different to all of you, if you're primary, secondary, or early years. Of course, we have to link it to ITT, Early Career Framework, and your teacher standards. And then the last bit will be a few sort of thinking points as well, but please do keep those comments going. Okay, so we'll get started. So first of all, we need to have a think about what we mean. What is a lens? When we're talking about our lens or somebody else's lens, what are we talking about? So You've got the dictionary explanation on there, and you've also got an explanation of habitus from Pierre Bourdieu. I actually loved him when I was doing my masters. He just really sort of explained quite a bit. So your lens is how you see the world, how other people see the world and the people in it, and how that's influenced by your life experiences. Okay, so it's an individual thing, it could be a group thing, it's behavior, it's attitudes. It might be that your lens is influenced by how you grew up, what your family pedagogy is, for example. It might be influenced by your own strong views in a particular area. And the Cambridge Dictionary talk about an actual lens, so camera lens or other, about how the way that we move that lens or manipulate it can make things appear distorted or different. Okay, and it's recognizing that all our lenses are different, and the way we see the world is different. Okay, and in order to appreciate how we see the world and the impact of that we might have a bit of hidden bias and how that's kind of impactful on others, is to recognize our own lens first. Okay, so hopefully you're with me on that so far. I'm not sure, I assume the slides are being shared with you, so there's a few links in there to things. So if you wanted to have a little look another time, then you've got the information that you need. Okay, so we're going to have a look at your lens and have a few minutes to just think about what your lens is. Okay, so what has been impactful in your own life that can have that can distort or change, or mean that perhaps you see things in one respect more sensitively to another from another family member or a friend or a child, and that will help us understand how the children that we're caring for or teaching will view the world. So this is my lens. Okay, and these are things, this is just an example of how you might feel you know somebody quite a lot. You probably do all know them. I'm a fairly open book, but there's a few things on here you might not know. But the point of this exercise is to illustrate that you won't know what somebody's lens is until you understand their experiences or have regard for how they've grown up and what they've experienced in their lives. So I won't go through all these pictures, but the one in the middle, that's a picture of me and my brother and sister. So I am the middle one of 5 in some parts of my family and the eldest of 3 in others. My family is quite complicated. Okay. Top left, the cow. I'm absolutely petrified of cows. I live near them. I walk through fields pretty much every day, but I will not go in a field with a cow. I have had no bad experience. My brother's a herdsman. There's no reason for that, but I'm absolutely exceptionally scared, petrified of cows. Having said that, I love being outside. All these photos are outside. I've got 2 teenagers, which sometimes makes me highly sensitive, other times makes me super chilled. And bottom left, my favourite one. Love being in the sea, love being in the coast, love trying to surf, spend more time falling off than staying on, but absolutely love being outside. And my family is super important. But all those things you probably wouldn't know unless we'd had a deep conversation, you'd read some information about me. And that's the point of this slide, really. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, you don't have to share in the chat, but we're all different. We've all had different life experiences. I'd like to just take a couple of minutes just to write down all the things that make you you. There's nobody youer than you, and just have a little think, write a few bits down about all the things that have happened in your life or that are important to you that might shape your lens on the world. Okay, so I'll just give you a couple of minutes. I'll mute myself for a sec while you're all doing that. Okay, hopefully you've all managed to jot a few things down. So while you've still got your pens in your hand, or whatever format you're using, just go through that list and tick off the ones that would somebody know that if they didn't already know you really, really well. Okay. And hopefully you've got a few things on that list. And the point of that exercise is when we're thinking about what changes we can make and how well we're getting to know our children and what we can provide in the environment, which we'll come to in a minute, it's really important to acknowledge that a lot of the protected characteristics, a lot of the interests, thoughts and feelings of the children and pupils, we actually don't know that. We need to have that conversation with them. We need to get to know them. They're not outwardly visible. And if I use my example of the cows, unless you were with me in a field or on a farm, you would have no idea I'm scared about cows. Yeah, if you took me on a farm trip with school, it'd just be a disaster. Okay, so that's the first thing. We've identified our own lens. It's helped us understand what makes us us. It's also going to help us understand how we view the world and how that might be different to the children and the pupils that we're looking after or teaching. Okay, so I hope you're with me so far. So this is where we can apply the windows and mirrors concept. I only came across this a few months ago and I was hooked. And there's a really great couple of TED Talks. I've tried to get the links into the chat for you, but I'm on school Wi-Fi, so it won't let me do it. I will send them to Ben and hopefully you can share them. But the windows and mirrors concept, as far as back as I could find, it was Emily Stahl in 1988. And it's really centered around the literature that we have out. And I'm sure, you know, your English leads and things like that may have already touched on this already. However, I really strongly felt that we could apply the windows and mirrors concept to our environments as well. So not just literature, it's really important, of course, that children can see themselves and their culture recognised in literature, but also those positive opportunities through literature. But also, why can't we apply that to our lens and to our classroom or our provision? So if you're thinking about windows are stories about life from a different perspective. So giving a child a window helps them to see all the other opportunities, all the other cultures, all the other thoughts and feelings of everybody else that they might come into contact with. And by showing them those windows, they're going to get a better understanding of the diversity of human experiences and the wider world around them. If anybody's here from an early years background, we sort of link this a little bit to cultural capital, and cultural capital, again, links strongly to the experiences that children have had and how we as early years professionals and even teachers, etc., can input those experiences where children are missing them. So windows is very much outward, out of their own world, out of their own lens. And then mirrors is a little bit like the opposite. It's about them understanding their own experiences, their own diversity, and how we can provide that recognition within our environment that the children can recognise themselves, feel like their culture or their ideas are being respected and promoted positively. Okay, so if you just remember windows and mirrors, great. I've got a slide with links on further down towards the end where you can sort of have a click and a bit more of a read in depth. But yeah, we love windows and mirrors, and it was perfect for what we're talking about today. So we're going to just move that thinking on now to our environment. Okay, I'm going to encourage you to have a thought shower. This is where I really would like you to engage with the comment box, if that's okay. So we've looked at what our lens is. We understand ourselves. We're going to get to know our children and know them really well. We know that providing opportunities for them to understand the wider world and culture and the protected characteristics and so forth is really important. We also now know it's important to provide mirrors, positive images and positive representation of all our children. So the next thing we need to do is think about what an environment is, exactly what makes up our environment. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to add into the chat what you think we mean by environment. Off you go. Somebody be brave. Give it a minute in case it's the delay. Brilliant, Sarah. Yeah, definitely. Your environment is where you live, where you work. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. What children see around them, both at school and out of school. Yeah, can we be any more specific about that? Yeah, Ella, the space around us, definitely. Yep, inside and outside, around us and in front of us. The space around you, yeah, brilliant, and everything encompassed in it. So if we take that down a notch then, can anybody be a bit more specific about exactly what, you know, where could we provide in our environment those windows and mirrors for our children? Yeah, brilliant, Megan. The classroom, the layout of the tables, the working walls, the outdoor areas. Yeah, keep going. These are all brilliant suggestions. Absolutely. The atmosphere of the classroom. So positive versus negative, definitely. So that pedagogy, how does that classroom feel? Because sometimes it's not something we need to see, it's something we need to feel. We need to feel that inclusivity. We need to feel safe in that environment. Anybody else? These are all great suggestions. I'm hoping that somebody will be able to capture them and send them to you afterwards. Okay, so I'll read my list off as well. So you're all absolutely right. I've pulled it right down a little bit more to the nuts and bolts of what the environment is. So I think this linked to what a couple of you said. So definitely the pedagogy. Absolutely, that culture in that classroom, the culture in your school or your provision makes such a massive impact on how children feel about themselves and about others and how they're going to see through their window or look through that mirror to understand themselves and that wider world. Images, so thinking about the posters you might have up in your provision, the books, representations, the stories that you use on the big screen to explain things. You know, what are we seeing in those? Are there really positive representations? Are different cultures represented in what you're providing for those children? And the same goes with books, your resources, you know, the communications that you're having, and I'll come on to that in a minute, you know, that modeling of that language and that positive language as well. So I'll give you a quick example. I was in a preschool setting a few years back now. We were all sat around the table colouring in, and a child turned around and said, why are you using black? I don't like black. Black's a really horrible colour. It's a dirty colour. That's what my mummy says. Now you imagine if you are a child that's black or black hair, you know, imagine how that would make them feel. So it was my job in that situation to talk about, well, I really like black. If we didn't have the colour black, I wasn't that experienced at the time. Father Christmas wouldn't have his boots, you know, and all those sorts of things, kind of turn that child's perception around about the colour black and make it just as important as any other colour, to put that positivity on it and that inclusivity on it. I also went to a classroom a couple of years ago to do an observation, and I don't think I probably would have had this thought process if it wasn't the particular child that stood up and went to the teacher for some help. Now, I don't know what culture the child was from. Of course, I can't tell that, but she had a different skin tone to the majority of the children in her class. That alerted me to have a look around the classroom. There was absolutely zero representation of anybody other than, you know, white population in that classroom. They then went on to provide a phonics lesson from the phonics fairy, who clearly has something extremely exotic for breakfast because she is so energetic. But again, she was a white person. And then the child was taken over to the phonics wall to have a look at all the letters. And that just got me having a look at all the colours. And all the colours in that room were all the primary colours, pink, you know, purple, all those sorts of colours. There was no black or brown. There was no cultural fabric in that room. There was nothing in that room that represented that particular child. Okay, so I think we have to think about our environment, yes, as the ethos and the pedagogy, but also pull that down that next step. So where can that child see themselves? Where can they recognize themselves in that environment? You You know, it should be embedded. And there's a big discussion that happens quite frequently about whether something is tokenistic or not. And I think, you know, I have this argument with myself all the time. I don't think we should put resources out just from a tokenistic perspective. I think we need to choose our resources carefully and ensure they meet the needs of the children and the activity you're doing, but also always bear in mind the windows and mirrors. You know, do you have to use pasta for counting, or is there something else a little bit more diverse that you can use? And Dirk will correct me on this, but I think you have got that diversity section in all your lesson plans and things like that still. So, you know, they're the sorts of things that you can be thinking about. Where can you input those windows and mirrors into your lessons and into your resources? Okay, have you got all the colours available? Are, you know, the brown and black pencils, the pink, peach and all of that, are they all available? Have you got those skin tone resources? Can those children recognise themselves? Can they draw themselves? Can they find themselves in a book? Can they see a positive representation? Okay, I might have jumped ahead. Okay, so just to think about this slide here and that child and pupil voice, what you can see is as important as what you can't see. So getting back to our lens and what makes us us, thinking about what we can't see is just as important as what we can see. Okay, there are lots of diversity that we just don't know is there until we take that time to have those conversations. And it's really important that we make those little changes. We get that pedagogy right in our provision, because it links really strongly to well-being and safeguarding as well. It gives that those children will feel that it's a safe place to be. They'll feel respected and they'll feel represented, and they'll be more likely to talk to you and confide in you if anything's worrying them, but also feel really super positive. And I think there's that saying, isn't there, Maslow before Bloom? And, you know, we might expect children to reach all their sort of learning milestones, if you like, but how can they do that if they've not reached self-actualization and feel really safe in the environment that they're in? So not to bombard you too much, but if you're approaching, because you're all coming up to the summer term, you're all going to have your own classrooms really soon, which is really exciting. But thinking about the children in your class, these two questions here just provide a little bit of a thinking point for you. So what is it like for this child in this class or this setting? Where can they see themselves? Where are they represented? Okay. What small changes can you make to make the biggest impact? Okay. On that child's lens, on your lens, the lens of others, and provide those windows and mirrors. Okay. And it might be something simple about you going to audit the bookcase or the library. It might be something bigger that you've suddenly decided, actually, we've got no positive representation in this classroom, and we need to go and change all the displays. But just be thinking, yes, it's the things we can't see. Sometimes we might need to see as well. Okay. Okay, so linking to ITT. I'm sure you all know these, upside down, back to front. Are you having to do your matrix of evidence yet? You still have to do that? You will, I'm sure, be collecting all sorts of exciting, important things that you've all, you know, to showcase your learning. But just to link what we're talking about today to the teaching standards, really, it's part 2. I mean, you weave it through everything, but part 2 for me particularly links to what we're talking about today. Okay, treating pupils with dignity, building relationships, mutual respect, well-being, and also tolerance and respect for the rights of others. Okay, so getting back to that windows and that mirrors. So respecting that children may come with bias or depending on their upbringing, but thinking about how we can respect that and understand that, but also help them to see that wider world using those windows. Okay, and then thinking to the early career framework, which is on the left. You know, it demonstrated there that culture of respect in the bottom right there. Okay, so that's where that can be found and linked to what you're currently working towards. Okay, now I'm not going to play this because if you had anything to do with me in your recruitment on the ski, you've probably watched this 65 times. I'm hoping that you all still love it, and I'm hoping that you still use it and watch it on those days, perhaps when things are getting a bit too much. Hopefully they're not, and you're all excited about this last sort of term, really heading towards the end. But yeah, Rita Pearson, every child deserves a champion. And that's what we are. We're part of the environment. Yes, it is resources, but it's also us. It's also how we talk, our communications with them, our relationships with them, and what we take the time to find out about those children. Okay. I haven't actually asked if anybody's got any questions, but please bung them in the chat if you have. It's absolutely fine. Okay. So there's a few links and resources here. I've put some windows and mirrors links there. Most of it is related to literature, but I think you can sort of glean the main themes from that and take influence from that concept. I don't know if you've come across the Pride and Progress podcast series, which I think some of you perhaps know Adam Brett already, but Series 1, particularly episode 8, with Kirsty Stubbs, who's principal at Boothroyd Primary School. She talks about the environment right from the front door of school and what she's done within her school to make her school look inclusive and feel inclusive. And so that's a really, really excellent episode of that podcast to listen to after this session. Okay. And then these two thinking points right at the end. And I really, this first quote stuck with me, the blue one at the top. Teachers need to see colour because it's one of the things that makes your students unique. Every time a white teacher says, I don't see colour, you abandon a child in an educational void by refusing to recognise them for who they are. Additionally, you fail to prepare them to enter a world who will see their colour as a factor to their success and abilities. I think it's really important there to note that you can add any of the protected characteristics into that quote, but you know, to not represent it, to not acknowledge it, to not be positive about it, you know, really is failing our children. And what's that saying to the rest of the children and our colleagues as well? You know, it's not passing on those good messages, those positive messages. It's not providing those important mirrors, but equally so, those super amazing windows to show children that, you know, no matter who they are, they're all special and they can all achieve as much as they want to achieve. And then, probably controversially, I've added a little quote from Amanda Spielman at the bottom, which we talked about at a session not long ago on cultural capital. And she talked a lot about children being lucky, and lucky because of the family culture, not just financially lucky, but they're lucky because they're supported. They're lucky because they've had experiences. They're lucky because they've had some structured learning. They're able to seize opportunities, and that children are unlucky because they don't have the same. And it really just got me thinking about, really then, it's our job to make sure that all our children are lucky. That if they're not having that support at home, what can we do in school or nursery, preschool, secondary school, college? What can we do to ensure all our children have the opportunity to be lucky and feel lucky, most importantly? I do love a quote. And so see the light in each other and be the light for each other. I think that encapsulates what we've talked about today. And be the reason someone feels welcomed, seen, heard, valued, loved, and supported. You know, we don't have to know the ins and outs of every single culture or festival or, you know, life experience, but if we acknowledge them as much as we can positively, ensure our pedagogy is open and inclusive, that will make such a big difference. Okay. Right, I'm going to cross the slides off because that's the end. Hopefully I'm still on the screen somewhere. That hasn't lasted that long. Sorry, Dirk. Didn't quite fill the time. Hope that's okay. But I hope that's provided some food for thought. I hope you feel, you know, I'm not going to give you all the answers. It's a too big a topic for me to give you all the answers, but hopefully it's provided some really good thinking points for you that you can take back into your provision, into your classrooms, use in your practice once you're all qualified and you have your own class, which is so exciting. And use those 2 questions to really evaluate your provision in your classroom and think about what's it like for a child here and can they see themselves? And have you got those windows and mirrors in whatever form that might be? Because if you've got those, then you're halfway there. Thanks, Dirk.
Great. Thanks, Jo. We had a comment from Sarah. She's asked if the links can be sent separately, so if we can get the slide shared and the links so people can then click on them. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
that's
problem.
Great. Yeah, and to answer your question, Joe, so yeah, people, all the trainees are working towards moving towards teacher standards currently. So all that work on their Pebble pads, that's got all the evidence there.
Excellent.
It's just, yeah, if you've done your RDKs and you've kept up with that, then all your evidence for teacher standards is there, and I'm sure all your Hubblies would have gone through that. So working out at the moment, and yeah, in terms of the DEI, it's still a box on the planning, Joe. So yeah, so when you're planning your lessons, it's about that IL6 thing about creativity, about being creative, about how you look at diversity, and that's what these sessions are for, really. You know, to make sure that you're thinking outside the box and thinking how you can, like Joe's saying, everything that you do, we can look through a certain lens for each of those children, in our classes and stuff. It reminded me actually, Joe, you might have seen these, but when you're talking about colouring and stuff like that, I know Crayola and other companies do colours of the world pack now, which are fantastic with different skin tones in. So if you've not seen them, I definitely would look at getting a pack of them for your classroom toolkit.
Well, that's it. And colouring pencils aren't going to save the world, are they? They're just not. But added into everything else, into your pedagogy, into your thought processes, your communications, the examples that you show, it's all those little building blocks, isn't it, that can help those children, which is the main thing.
Great. Thanks for that,
Excellent.
Joe.
It's all right. You're welcome.
Thanks for your time, Joe. Thanks everyone for that. Any questions, give us a little message across, and I know Joe will answer any of them. Have a great few weeks. Like I say, enjoy the spring as it comes. Really enjoy your teaching practice as you move in the 90 to 80%. And as Joe says, exciting times. You're getting your own classes, moving forward and applying for jobs, or you've got jobs. So good luck with all of that. I'm sure I'll see you all as I go around the sessions over the next month or so. Have a fantastic end to the term. Enjoy it. Thank you, Joe. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.